Chapter 42. Through the catacombs, the four continued. No sign of natural light or even proper direction to be seen anywhere. How the hell does a group so full of morons build such an elaborate system of tunnels? Canary asked under her breath. They only need one person in charge to plan all this out, Batman said. I knew Blackfire played the long game, but this is just unreal. You don't suppose we could just ask for directions? Blackhawk picked up her pace to ask Batman directly. Dina and I have been handling these guys, knocked the guns out of their hands, and they fold like cowards. I'm not going to rush to find out if they have any kind of alarm system the Seraphim has set up down here. Ironically, within a minute of his saying so, there came a low, shaking, rumbling sound, but just after everyone realized it was pre-recorded. As the foghorn-like sound consumed the passageway, several men stepped out of their guard chambers and looked around in confusion. "What the hell was that?" one of them shouted. As they came ever so slightly more into view, Batman leaned against the wall and hid Robin under his cape. The birds mimicked his stance and remained totally still. "It's the boss's alarm!" Another on the opposite side of the chamber shouted. "We gotta get to the chapel. No, wait, he's out. Lester will have an announcement. Come on!" The four hardly took a breath as 7 men ran past them, 2 cherubim a few paces behind. Eventually, Batman relaxed his stance and let Robin out from under his cape as the halls cleared. "Well, that was easy," Robin said. "The question is, do we try to follow them, or do we search this place all we possibly can? Whoever Lester is, he's probably in charge while Leibowitz is away." Batman glared down the tunnel. "And he'll probably know how to shut this thing down from the inside." "But we are going to see them all set up in the same place at the same time," Canary said. "They've got the numbers, they've probably got a lot of guns. Rushing in would not bode well." "These aren't normal criminals, though," Batman said as he began to follow. "Threatening one of their leaders might force them into cooperation." "You're putting a lot of stock into how big of suckers you think these guys are." Blackhawk chuckled as she followed behind. "They've been giving me a lot to work with." Batman pushed a hand to his cowl again. "Oracle, can you still hear me?" "Just... Barbara spoke through heavy static. "Tell Nightwing and Huntress to make their way down here quickly. Everyone in this vicinity is going to be concentrated in one location. They should be able to get down without much difficulty. Within a few steps, Batman felt sure the connection to Oracle died entirely. With a nod to the other 3, they proceeded into the catacombs again, each footstep as light as they could make them, as darkness threatened to consume them all. Still, there was no going back. There came a light creak at Barbara Gordon's apartment door as she instantly turned herself around to see. In the threshold, tired and weak but smiling, stood Commissioner James Gordon. "Heck of a job you pulled off there, soldier," he said. Barbara pushed her chair as fast as she could to meet him and wrapped her arms tight around her father. "Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, Dad." Barbara had to fight off tears. "Thank goodness you're safe." At this point, Huntress too entered the room, arms folded as she eyed her confidant carefully. "We figured this would be the safest place for him for right now. Dick is fine, by the way. I don't know what he's told you, but we rendezvoused a few minutes ago." "Good." "He's safe?" Gordon said. "I can hardly believe it after what they did to the old place. I know I gave him a lot of crap back in the day, Babs, but he really just pulled through. And so did you. Well, we can't celebrate just yet, Dad." Barbara turned back toward her computer. "Batman said he sent you a message last night. You know what's going on. We have a lot of other people we still have to save tonight." "That's right. What can I do? I can get the rest of the force out as fast as possible, but I don't even know where to go. A large-scale invasion of the base, from what Batman told me, would be suicidal," Barbara said. "If there's anything you can do, it's try to warn everyone to stay away from the churches." "We're going to be spread way too thin trying to close off every church in the city." Gordon's tone was grave. "It's 7:30 now. We don't have a lot of time to carry this out, and who knows how many people we can stop anyway. There's no way Hattie's going to clear this. We've just got to do whatever we can, and that's just worst-case scenario. That's if Batman can't cut this thing at its roots. Huntress," she turned to Helena as she typed a few notes on one of her maps of the city. "Based on what Batman told me about his location, I think we can safely estimate where a few more entrances to the Seraphim's hideout are, including this one." She pointed to a small spot on the map a mile up the river from Dixon Docks. Judging by the phone that Sadie girl used to call for the ambulance for herself and Cassandra, there should be an entrance right around here. Batman said his forces were distracted for the moment, so you and Nightwing should hurry to break things up from there. Huntress gave Barbara a nod. A finger was already pressed to her mask to call Nightwing with the location. Toward the end of a long, dark passageway, Batman, Robin, Canary, and Blackhawk arrived in a small section bathed in light. There was a door which, upon closer examination, led to 6 small individual cells, all of them empty, but a terrible smell of sweat and blood wafted out from within. Not far from that room stood 2 gigantic wooden doors, etched with decorative crosses and figures with wings. Just before that door, 4 cherubims stood guard. No sound permeated the room behind the gigantic doors, but it was clear by the size and the guards that it must be where the Seraphim's forces congregated. "They have to be in there, and someone inside should have our answers," Batman said. "Now we just need a way in without tipping off security. I don't want to try and fight them all at once if we don't have to." "How about a vent?" Robin scanned the surrounding area. "No, damn, I don't see any." "How about a hostage?" Canary asked. "If they think they've captured one of us, they'll probably open the doors to gloat. Or they'll just try to kill you 2 on the spot." Batman looked between her and Blackhawk. After a brief contemplation, he pressed on. "It's not as if we can hear anything that's going on inside, but those men in the masks probably have a way to alert them if we try to make our way in. Damn, they aren't making this easy." "Well, it's just tied to those masks, right?" Robin asked. "Get the mask off and they can't tell left from right." "It's a shame Zatanna's not here, but I think we can make do." With that, Batman drew a batarang from his belt and pressed a small circular button in the center. "The electrical pulse should knock the 4 of them offline. Then we can force them out of our way." With that, Batman tossed the batarang at the ground between the 4 figures. They all exchanged looks with one another before one, the Eagle, took a step forward to examine it. As he did, Batman flipped a switch on the remote in his hand. The resultant release filled the 4's head with static. With nothing more than a nod, the 4 heroes rushed to meet them. The sudden attack left the 4 cherubim thrown off. Batman, Robin, and the 2 birds of prey overtook them hard and fast. Robin swiftly beat down and tore off the mask of the Eagle, pausing only twice to block the attacks from short blades, staff in one hand, and the other with a closed fist. Blackhawk and Canary jumped at the Lion and Ox, both of whom were too slow to keep up with a pair of women at the peak of their physical conditioning. The birds switched between the 2 targets every few strikes before simultaneously smashing their heads together, shattering their masks. And, for his own part, Batman pulled out another electrically charged pellet from his belt and forced it into the man's right arm. The shock loosened his whole body and allowed Batman to easily send him careening into the wall, the impact of which broke his mask. The Dark Knight smiled at his handiwork. The enemies that had once given them so much trouble were just dispatched as though they were nothing. He then slowly turned toward the imposing doors, drew another gadget from his belt, plugged it into his cowl, and pressed it to the entryway. Faintly, he heard a voice he did not recognize as it ranted into the room. "And for those sins we shall force all of Gotham to face its recompense. And no force in the world, no Batman, not his disciples, no one but God himself will stop this deliverance. Gotham's destruction is at hand, and we shall reap it upon this city's slime and hypocrites in a few short hours." "Sounds like whoever is in there has the trigger," Batman said. "But we still have some time before he can use it. We can still—" "Ah, but my brothers, there remain those who would see our works quashed," the voice continued. "Some of whom would destroy the years of work the Seraphim has pushed for. Some who would believe we would stand by and be defeated." With that, Batman picked up a tiny but consistent beeping sound. Staring at the door for a moment, he yelled, "Get back!" The 4 leapt backwards. Nothing came of it, no explosion or the like, just their sudden reveal to a church full of the Seraphim's followers. One in particular, dressed in a preacher's garb and holding some kind of trigger, flashed them a sinister grin. "They're all pull doors from this side, Batman," he said with a sneer, and the sensors within are designed to reveal any unwanted intruders. Not that we need to keep you out. Come, join us. We were just holding this evening's prayer services. I see you even picked up a few tramps off the street. Maybe God can teach them a little something about modesty." There had to be at least 40 men, all dressed in the same black as always, packed into the chapel, another 8 cherubim at their sides. "Hell of a lot of 'em." Black Canary took her stance. "That's fine. We can take 'em. Let's party." The ensuing melee was an intense and disproportionate sight. It was obvious not a single zealot within the room could possibly fight any of them alone, but their numbers gave them a distinct advantage. As Black Canary jumped between enemies, delivering punches and kicks, one of a few were constantly getting handfuls of her hair and jerking her every which way. Through a grit in her teeth, she knocked them off, but seconds later another attacker would take their place. The grab strategies of the room quickly forced Batman and Robin to abandon their capes. Batarangs, shuriken, and strings of wire from grappling hooks filled the room. The 4 heroes struggled to maintain any kind of advantage against their attackers. Once in a while, Batman, Robin, and Blackhawk managed to congregate toward the center of the room and deliver a few more knockouts. But the attacks continued in the form of heavy barrage after heavy barrage. Black Canary, however, was in the worst of straits. Quickly separated from the rest of the group, and her attackers not abstaining from deadly force, she felt sure she felt a few hairs cut from her head as she managed to avoid a number of knife strikes. But even she knew she couldn't keep up like that forever. The constant attacks from the rest of the room wore down her technique, and, unlike the other 3, she wasn't able to catch her breath. Even amongst her nose-breaking, consciousness-ending kicks, she knew her strength was beginning to fade. And then she felt the blade enter her lower back. Canary was in the midst of a jump backwards, trying to avoid an incoming strike when one of the cherubim, an eagle, managed to finally land a stab into the desperate bird. She instantly grit her teeth and struggled to fight off the pain before she decided enough was simply enough. That fight needed to end, and quickly. There was no time to give the others any warning. She'd have to settle for apologies later. Out from her mouth at last came the canary cry. The pitch of the sonic scream threatened to shatter the room's stained glass as Robin, Blackhawk, and Batman all held hands to their ears and struggled to block it out. The reaction from the rest of the room, however, was radically different. After Black Canary's scream, others soon accompanied it. The men gathered in the chamber roared in agony. The preacher at the front of the chamber clutched his forehead as if he fought off a violent aneurysm. The eyes of the men in the room went wide and wild. Mucus started to drip from their mouths as they screamed words unintelligible. Those who were simply violent before suddenly screeched in abject terror. Their attacks lost all grace, and they became 10 times more intense. Hands scratched at Robin and Blackhawk's faces. Those who could be pinned to the ground quickly were, and kicked repeatedly before they could catch a single breath. Though Black Canary continued to fight as best she could, soon she too was felled by a rush of the Seraphim's servants tackling her, who screeched, "Harpy!" or "Succubus!" as they did. Within a minute of the canary call, Batman was the only one left standing. He beat back any of the suddenly enraged opponents as best he possibly could. His eyes remained firmly on the preacher at the front of the room, who held his head and appeared to sob into the podium. Batman made a run for him when a path appeared to be open, but was quickly body-checked by 2 of the men, who pinned him to the ground as the rest of the cherubs gathered around. Batman was unable to overcome all 8 of them at once as they repeatedly beat and stomped on his body. "Enough! Enough!" The preacher roared as he fought with all his willpower to regain his composure. "Are you all so drunk on epiphany that you cannot hear me? I said enough!" The room seemed to calm, ever so slightly, as he struggled to hold on to himself, as if fighting some horrible transformation. "We have our orders. The Batman lives. His disciples live. The whores," he spoke with a snarl, "I want them to drown. Take them and the boy to the White Room. If you dare to make us drink from that font, you shall do so yourself." And despite all efforts the 4 made, the cherubim soon forced their separation. They dragged Black Canary, Blackhawk, and Robin into the White Room, as they forced Batman into the very cell that contained his daughter shortly before. The preacher gasped for breath desperately. The burst of epiphany chemicals brought on by the cry disheveled him as he called his master. "Sire, we have them. Batman, Robin, the 2 women. We have them." "That makes 4, Lester," the Seraphim said. "There are more." "More?" The preacher threw up his hands. Where? Where are there more?" "2 of them just freed Commissioner Gordon a little over an hour ago. Do not drop your guard. They could be headed to you." Yes, sir." The preacher hung up and gnashed his teeth. "As if we have anything to fear." As the preacher stepped out of the chapel, the bodies of Nightwing and Huntress slowly appeared out from the area where stained glass met wall and glared at the hall opposite them. "Oracle, this is going to be a problem," Nightwing said. "You sure you can't send us any more backup? Sorry, my dad's already doing everything he can to keep services from happening. Steph's leg would probably be ruined. Cassie's still in intensive care. Services usually start at 11, right? 3 hours. This is bad. You guys have to kill this operation. As fast as possible. We'll figure out something then," Nightwing said. "Whatever it takes." I don't mean to pry, but any particular reason you had me break you out of the clinic where you were clearly getting the help you need? Can't explain now, Sadie. Cassandra's eyes remained firmly on the road ahead of them. Have something to do, that's all. Well, hey, need I remind you the whole saving my butt thing goes pretty far? Sadie said. I'm just impressed you managed to slip out of there like you did. I've been in and out of a couple doghouses myself, but never out of a hospital. The two remained silent for a few miles through the city before Cassandra, trying to break the quiet, asked, Why do you wear those? Those necklaces. Oh, my tags. Sadie raised them a little higher to give her a better look. They were a gift. My brother was a soldier. These are from him. Oh. Cassandra gave that a little nod. Yeah, this one has his name on it. Or the name I used to call him, at least. His name was Will, but I called him Salty. Why? Kind of a long story. Our dad wasn't married to his mom, and she didn't end up giving him the Leech name. So his last name was Saltonstall. But my dad had him over some weekends while I was growing up. My mom always kind of sucked about him, though. She called him Saltonstall, and, well, that's hard to pronounce when you're little, so I called him Salty. I guess that wasn't all that long, but still. The two went quiet again for a few minutes as Sadie escaped the city limits. He was one of my best friends. I could tell Salty anything. Things Mom hated when I'd even bring up. Salty would tell me to quit beating myself up so much. I was never really a real military brat, but I always liked it when he called me a good soldier. What happened to him? Cassandra asked. Go overseas? Sadie didn't respond immediately. Her eyes remained glued to the road, and Cassandra was left to wonder what she was thinking before she quietly replied, War does terrible things to the people you love, and sometimes you feel like you're dying every day before it finally comes to an end. She tightened her grip on the steering wheel. And sometimes you're the person who makes that decision. After a moment of thought, Cassandra sadly understood. I'm sorry. He's with God now. You think? Sadie said. Not exactly the reaction I'm used to hearing. Think so, especially when we are in pain. No, he must be feeling better now. After another few miles of driving, Sadie approached the back roads that led to Wayne Manor. You know, Cass, I never really thought about God all that much, Sadie said with a sigh. All I know is he works for some people and doesn't really for others. Like we've done something wrong or something. Still a new believer, too. Cassandra laid her hand on her new friend's shoulder. But believe God was always there, even if I didn't know. God made me who I am, even before I prayed. You think God looks out for all of us? Sadie asked. Even the ones who never say a word to the guy? Even those of us who maybe don't even think he exists? Like a good parent, always loving, never giving up on us. Cassandra trailed off for a beat before she said, Just got over something. Struggled for a bit. You're a new believer and you already had a mini crisis of faith? Sadie chuckled involuntarily. Why? Cassandra let out a long sigh. She needed to keep moving, but this still hung over her. She hadn't been ready to talk about it with Stephanie, but maybe the fact that she didn't know Sadie so well would make it easier. Think I love Stephanie. Would want to be with her, if Tim wasn't. Sadie appeared to take a moment to absorb this before her eyes widened. Oh! So, like, you're a lesbian? Cassandra blew a breath up at her face. No, of that word. Not really what it means, though. Okay, maybe then. Sadie still sounded a little overwhelmed, though Cassandra was surprised to note there was something else there, too. Excitement? I mean, it's probably super obvious, but you realize I didn't have a crappy college boyfriend, right? Cassandra frowned. Huh? I lied about having a boyfriend in a dorm I was crashing with. She was a crappy college girlfriend, Sadie said. It was probably the worst, least convincing lie I've ever told. I mean, look at my hair. She brushed at it as she spoke. Don't understand. What about it? As Cassandra asked the question, her mind turned to Sadie's previous point. Wait, you're like that too? You've had girlfriends? Sadie laughed and shook her head. Oh man, are you for real? Am I having the single most baby gay conversation on the planet right now? Cassandra considered asking what that was supposed to mean, but the way Sadie seemed so amused made her ask instead, Is that bad? No, not at all. Sadie looked away from her as her cheeks went red and she spoke fast. Look, if you're into girls, there's nothing wrong with you, okay? I just want you to know that, first thing. I'd have killed for someone to tell me that when I first realized. I don't know if you're gonna get some pushback from your church or whatever, but you're obviously not some lifelong, ultra-conservative weirdo. As she spoke, she finally pulled up to the gate of Wayne Manor. For a few moments, the two sat in silence before she added, And, for what it's worth, I think you're pretty freaking cool. And if you wanted to go get coffee or something sometime... It took Cassandra a moment to process what was being suggested. But, as oblivious to social norms as she often felt, she had listened to enough of Stephanie and Tim's flirting and seen enough movies to pick up what was being suggested. For just a moment, she froze up. Oh, She wanted to say more, but struggled for what? Out of the corner of her eye, Cassandra saw Sadie nod half-heartedly a little. I mean, just if you want. I know I'm no Stephanie, if Stephanies are what you're into. Not that, Cassandra said. Sadie wasn't wrong. Her short hair and would-be biker aesthetic were a long way off from someone more feminine like Stephanie. But that detail hadn't even crossed her mind when she'd started to imagine the two as a couple. Stephanie was attractive because Cassandra cared about her, not the other way around. And while the moments spent with Sadie had been brief so far, there was, without a doubt, care there as well. As Cassandra realized that, butterflies began to dance in her stomach. Suddenly nervous she'd taken too long to answer, she quickly said, Think I'd like that. Would you? Sadie's voice picked up. Cassandra's cheeks started to redden as well. Think so. But as Cassandra remembered how much dangerous work still laid ahead, she said, Have your number. We'll call. Busy now, Christmas and all. Okay, yeah, sure. Good luck with whatever you came here to do. Sadie leaned across the divider between their seats, and the two shared a hug. World needs more of your God, Cassie, she said. And world needs more people like you. Thank you. As Cassandra released her grip, stepped out, and watched as Sadie drove off into the distance, she lingered on that for just a moment. She already had so many worthy reasons to come back alive, but surely having one more tiny motivator like a date with Sadie couldn't hurt her odds. Then, with a sigh to let it all out, she turned toward the manor, scanned her handprint at the gate, and ran up the drive as they swung open. With a rush through the foyer, Cassandra gave little mind to Alfred's calls questioning who was there. She proceeded directly to the old grandfather clock, set it, and rushed into the Batcave as it slid aside. She wasn't planning anything special for this. Any of her old uniforms that weren't too badly damaged would work just fine, but when she arrived at the cave, she found her mannequin empty, no uniform in sight. Frustrated, she turned to the Bat-computer. Cassandra didn't know how to do much with it, but thankfully most of it was controlled through the clicking of icons rather than specific, typed information. As she tapped on icons of batsuits, a line then quickly appeared on the screen, but before she could select her own, a message came up. C/MER/CHRIS suit complete. View now? Cassandra couldn't make out the words on the screen, but she reluctantly clicked yes, unsure what else to do. As she did, she heard a number of machines spring to life under her feet. The naked mannequin that should have held her costume disappeared into the floor. Another of the figures took its place, and her mouth dropped open in surprise. The undermost layer the mannequin wore was entirely black, made from a lightweight but sturdy armor from neck to ankles. However, much of the black armor was covered, from elbow to wrist, waist to knee, feet and chest, by a second layer of significantly sturdier white armor, a small splash of periwinkle around the neck, and a bat symbol, golden covered and patterned after stained glass in the center, a cross embroidered in the middle. The suit bore a note Cassandra could only understand the most important parts of. Cassandra, try to work around your design. This is a touch more practical. Merry Christmas. Love, Bruce. Without a second thought, Cassandra pulled the uniform on. First the bottom layer of black, then the upper layers of white. Although the white was certainly heavier and more reinforced, the fact she wasn't wearing it all over allowed her to retain most of her flexibility. And the easier seen areas were now the most durable. Bruce was right. He figured out something practical. Moments after clearing the mannequin of the outfit, it too sunk into the floor and a new utility belt, along with an assortment of batarangs, grapples, and smoke bombs took its place. Most surprising, however, was what appeared to be a steel katana next to them, not unlike many of the swords she'd wielded in the past. As Cassandra handled it carefully, she found the weight just right, though the blade and point were both dulled. Still potentially deadly, if the wielder wished them to be, but not in the hands of someone as experienced as her. With a smile and a nod, she strapped the belt to her waist and the blade to her back. Cassandra turned toward the Redbird that Tim had forgone for the night. Hoped she remembered how to drive. It had been some time since she'd been behind the wheel. She knew Alfred would catch up with her in just a few minutes. She grabbed Tim's spare set of keys off Bruce's workbench, along with a domino mask to slide on as she drove out. However, something still held her, and she knew exactly what it was. She turned the Bat computer on one more time and clicked on the camera tool, which gave her a good look at her reflection. She smiled. The new suit was better than any of the ones in her imagination, but the grin was lost shortly thereafter as she clicked the red circle, and the computer began to record. "Sorry I didn't tell everything," Cassandra said, looking right at the screen. "Sorry there's one more thing to do, and I must do it. No one else will. I'll be all right. God is with me." She was quiet for a few beats thereafter, before she said, "But to be sure, God's will, not mine, be done. Thank you all for everything. Alfred, Barbara, Dick, Tim, you are my family. Stephanie, you are my best friend. Bruce," she stopped, wiped a tear from her eyes, and changed her mind. "No. Dad, thank you. Thank you all for loving me. Hope I see you tomorrow. Merry Christmas." She was unable to do more and swiftly killed the video before she headed for the Redbird. Every minute of the last months had built to this. How it would end, she did not know, but that the end had come, she was sure.